Have you ever given someone a genuine compliment and watched them physically recoil? You tell them they look great, and they immediately list everything wrong with their outfit. You praise their work, and they deflect with, "Oh, it wasn't nothing," or "Anyone could have done it." You say something kind, and they change the subject so fast it's like the words burned them. Meanwhile, there are people who receive compliments like they're collecting trophies, soaking up every word of praise with a simple "thank you." But here's the question. Why do some people treat compliments like gifts while others treat them like grenades? Why does genuine praise make certain people so deeply uncomfortable that they'll do anything to escape it? Stick with me until the end, because what you'll discover might even explain why you can't just say thank you when someone says something nice, or why that person in your life seems allergic to being appreciated. For some, the story is simple but painful. They can't accept compliments because their brain has been trained to associate praise with danger, manipulation, or conditions. Imagine this. You're a child, and every time someone compliments you, there's a hook hidden inside it. "You're so smart, now go get me perfect grades." "You look so pretty, now behave perfectly." "You're such a good kid, now don't disappoint me." The compliment isn't really about you, it's a tool to control you, to set up expectations you'll inevitably fail to meet. Or, worse, praise only comes before criticism. "You did great, but..." Psychologists call this conditional positive regard, when love and approval come with strings attached, when being valued depends on performance rather than existence. Over time, your nervous system learns that compliments are the calm before the storm. They're not gifts, they're down payments on demands you'll have to repay. So when someone offers genuine praise with no agenda, your brain doesn't recognize it. It feels wrong, dangerous, like accepting it means you're agreeing to terms you haven't read yet. Deflecting the compliment isn't rudeness or false modesty. It's a defense mechanism against a threat your body learned to recognize before your mind could understand it. Then there's another group. These people don't fear compliments. They simply can't reconcile them with the evidence they have about themselves. Think about how your internal narrative works. You know every mistake you've made, every flaw you see in the mirror, every time you've fallen short. That's your lived reality. Then someone compliments you, and suddenly there's this massive gap between what they see and what you know to be true. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the uncomfortable tension that happens when new information contradicts your existing beliefs about yourself. If your self-concept is, "I'm average, unremarkable, just getting by," and someone says, "You're exceptional," your brain short-circuits. One of these realities has to be wrong. And here's the thing. It's way easier to dismiss the compliment than to rebuild your entire self-image. So you deflect. "Oh no, I just got lucky. It's really not that good." You're not fishing for more praise. You're genuinely trying to correct what feels like a factual error. For them, accepting a compliment would mean admitting they've been wrong about themselves this whole time. And that's terrifying. It's easier to believe the compliment giver is being nice, exaggerating, or simply mistaken than to consider that maybe, just maybe, they're not as inadequate as they've always believed. But wait, there's a third type. These people struggle with compliments because they were raised in environments where attention, especially positive attention, wasn't safe. Maybe they grew up with a jealous parent who punished them for succeeding or standing out. Maybe they had siblings who bullied them whenever they received praise. Maybe their cultural or family background taught them that humility means making yourself smaller, that accepting compliments is arrogant or invites envy. In psychology, this is called tall poppy syndrome, the social phenomenon where people who stand out get cut down. Their nervous system learned early visibility equals vulnerability. Being noticed, even positively, puts a target on your back. So they developed a survival strategy: become invisible, deflect praise, minimize achievements, stay under the radar. It's not that they don't want to be valued, it's that being openly valued has historically been dangerous for them. The compliment isn't the problem, it's the exposure. Accepting it would mean standing in the spotlight, and every instinct they have screams that the spotlight is where bad things happen. Their discomfort isn't about self-esteem, it's about safety protocols their younger self developed to survive an environment where success was punished and excellence was dangerous. And then there's a fourth group. These are people dealing with imposter syndrome, that persistent feeling that they're frauds who've somehow tricked everyone into thinking they're competent. Research in psychology shows that high achievers are often most vulnerable to this. They know they've succeeded, but they genuinely believe it's through luck, timing, or fooling people rather than actual ability. Every compliment feels like evidence that they've successfully maintained the con, which only increases their anxiety that someone will eventually figure out the truth. When you compliment their work, they hear, "You've fooled another one." When you praise their talent, they think, "If only you knew how much I struggle." The deflection isn't humility, it's damage control. They're trying to lower expectations before the inevitable moment when everyone discovers they're not who they appeared to be. Behavioral psychology explains this as a self-protective strategy. If they never accept the praise, they never fully claim the identity that comes with it, which means they can't be exposed as an imposter. It's exhausting, constantly minimizing yourself, but it feels safer than the alternative, being found out. And finally, there's a fifth group. These people have actually developed a healthy skepticism about external validation. Studies in psychology show that people who are overly dependent on compliments often have fragile self-esteem, constantly needing external input to feel okay about themselves. But those who struggle to accept compliments have sometimes swung to the opposite end. They've realized that basing your worth on what others think, whether positive or negative, puts you on an emotional roller coaster you can't control. They've worked hard to develop internal validation, measuring themselves against their own values and standards rather than public opinion. So when a compliment comes, it doesn't quite land because they're not looking outward for approval anymore. It's not that they think the person is lying, it's that the compliment feels irrelevant to how they measure their own worth. This can actually be a sign of mature self-concept, when your identity is internally anchored rather than externally propped up. The discomfort isn't insecurity, it's the awkwardness of receiving something you've learned not to need. They appreciate the kindness, but they've stopped letting other people's perceptions, even positive ones, define how they see themselves. And here's the most interesting part. This discomfort with compliments doesn't exist in isolation. It usually reflects a broader relationship with being seen, valued, or vulnerable. People who can't accept compliments often struggle to take up space in other ways too. They apologize constantly. They downplay their needs. They make themselves smaller in groups. They give credit away. Does that mean they're doomed to a life of diminishment? Of course not. They're human. But understanding the root, whether it's conditional love, cognitive dissonance, survival instincts, imposter syndrome, or evolved independence, that understanding is the first step towards changing the pattern. Because sometimes the most radical act isn't learning to give compliments, it's learning to receive them. So whether you're someone who graciously accepts every kind word or someone who deflects praise like it's a personal attack, both reveal something fundamental about what you learned, what you believe, and what you've survived. For some, it's about protection, guarding against compliments that came with conditions or consequences. For others, it's about dissonance, unable to square external praise with internal certainty of inadequacy. For another group, it's about safety, having learned that visibility invites danger. For some, it's about fear, convinced they're imposters about to be exposed. And for many, it's about independence, having learned to stop measuring their worth by other people's words. The real question is, which one are you? Are you still protecting yourself from praise that came with strings? Wrestling with a self-image that won't accommodate kindness? Keeping yourself small because standing out wasn't safe? Living with imposter syndrome that turns every compliment into anxiety? Or have you simply stopped needing external validation to know your own value? And maybe more importantly, what would it mean to just say thank you and let someone's kindness land?
If this made you think differently about why you can't just accept a compliment, you'll love the other psychology topics we cover here. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next video. We dive deep into the kind of psychology that actually explains you.